Hi everyone. I did a live demo a few days ago on matting and framing, and unfortunately, live stream did not save that. So what I'm going to do is another short video on matting and framing. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'll go over a list of the materials, and also there's links to the materials on the Haiku Learning site under matting and framing. So be sure to check that out. I posted some links um, to places where you can get some of the mat board and foam board and things like that. Uh, but we'll go ahead and get started with the frames. Now there's a wide variety of frames that you can get, um, different styles and that. I generally will use these metal, black metal frames. These are made by Nielsen, and I'll put a link on Haiku. FramingSupplies.com has these frames, and they're rather inexpensive. Um, they're sold by a pair, so you can order, whatever size that you like in 1 inch increments. So, and they have these in different colors. I typically stay with one or two colors, white or black. I don't use, any other colors. I try to keep it very minimal as to focus attention on the artwork itself. But when you buy these, they come with these little corner brackets. So what you do is you slide the corner brackets into the groove and you tighten them. There's these little screws that's on each side. You tighten those, and then you just put them together, tightening the brackets each time. And once you get that, you have a complete frame. And what you'll do is you'll slide your plexiglass or glass and your mat board with the artwork here, and then you finally put the top on it. Now there's other types of frames too that you can buy. Here's a wooden frame. This is a shadow box frame. So as you can see here, the way I frame this, it really, you don't need to use a mat because basically this is, you can see this elevates the mat board off of the glass. And you can see here's a photograph that I took, and instead of matting it, what I did is I put pieces of foam from the foam board underneath, so it's sort of protruding off the top of the mat board, and this is probably going to be one of the simplest frame jobs that you could do. And I mean, that's it. And of course, this is mat board on the back side. But there's a lot of different frames that you can buy, so feel free to go online and look at a lot of different varieties. What I do, I'll buy the frames, and then I'll also buy the plexiglass. Now I'll get this at a home building center, and I've been buying sheets that are 36 inches by 48 inches, so 3 foot by 4 foot, and then I use this little scoring tool, and I'll score each side, and then I'll just put it over an edge and just snap it off. This is really, really easy to cut. And what you can do, now these have a plastic coating on them so they don't get scratched. You want to leave that on there until you get ready to frame. Now another thing that, well, I'll go ahead and talk about this. I've been using these for quite some time. If I frame a work of art, instead of, because a lot of times these frames can get sort of dinged, and to prevent that, let me go ahead and put this section on here really quick, and I can show you how this works. These, I ordered these from Uline. They're just, they're corner protectors, is what they are. And what you do is you fold these. And now this has different sizes, so depending on how thick your frame is, you can adjust this to that particular size. And what these do, you buy these and they come in a stack, and you just actually break them apart. But the way this works is once you get everything framed, it's just a convenient protector for the corners of the frames, and you would put one around each corner. And that just protects the frame from getting dinged, because you know I have tons of these that I've bought over the years, and they end up getting scratched and that. So this is a good way to prevent that. So I thought I'd mention that since I didn't in the first video. But you know, basically what we're using to create a mat with is the foam board. This is archival. It's generally the backing board for your matted piece. And what I like to do is I decide what size collage that I'm going to make if I make a series of them, and I cut all of these at the same time. And that way, when I'm cutting something, you know, the measurements are always consistent, and I'll cut, you know, if 30 of these or what, you know, how many ever I need. And I'll also do the same thing with the mat board. Now this is a mat board comes in different thicknesses, and the thicknesses are determined by the ply. There's a 2-ply, a 4-ply, and an 8-ply. Of course, the more ply the mat is, the more expensive it gets. Of course, the 8-ply is like a museum grade mat. It's really thick, and it could be a little harder to cut. Now this is a 2-ply mat here. Now what I do is, you know, I'll measure the artwork that I'm going to use. In this case, it's 4 inches by 4 inches, and as you can see, it fits in the center. I usually leave about you know, 1/4 inch or so edge around the artwork, and this is called a floating mat. And then I'll float that in the very center. It just gives it a little bit more room for the work to breathe. And I'll show you really quick how I attach these. Now, another thing that you're going to need, and I put this on the links, is artist tape. And what makes this a little different from just regular tape is the fact that it's, one thing, it's archival, and another thing, you can reposition it, so you can always pull the artwork back up if you need to. But what I do is I'll have generally two pieces, the backing board of the foam board and the mat board that I cut, and then I'm just going to put a strip of the artist tape across the top, and that way I can fold this down. And as you can see, it's on a hinge now. And what I can do next is, this is a collage that I did, and usually when I finish a collage, in all cases, I put my name, the title of the work, and the date that the work was made. And what I'll do is, I don't think I have scissors close by, but I'll use the razor. You're going to cut a small piece of the tape, and I fold this over like this, and I'll put one piece of tape at each corner. I cut some earlier, so I have some already folded. And what I'm going to do is put those on the corner. Okay. Now once I do that, and like I say, this is repositionable, so it doesn't tear your paper when you pull it back off if you need to reposition it. But what I'll do is I'll put this in the very center and then just press down like that. Here's another one that I did, um, and I will sign uh, my signature below this on the mat. As you can see, it's on the mat itself, and also put the title on that. So the title and my signature is both on the back of the mat board, or I'm sorry, on the back of the collage, and also on the foam board. Now, I also use labels. These are, see if you can see that a little closer. These are just mailing labels, and I designed a little logo to put on that. And I'll also put the title, the medium, collage on paper, the size, and the date that it was created. Now, I also make a little documentation sheet. In this case, I have 4 on one sheet. And what I'll do is I just basically state that this is an original handmade collage and the type of watercolor paper that I've used. And then the mat and the backing board are archival. And then the artist would be me. And then the title of the piece, the medium, the paper that I used, and the image size and the date it was created. Now I also put where the signature is signed, and all of that, and then I sign it. And then, of course, I have my website and my blog that I use. So now, after I mat these, in order to protect them, what I do is I use these clear bags, and actually these are from a company called Clear Bags. Now you can get them at different sizes. Pretty much any size that you can imagine, you can get them in. So that's really what I was talking about as far as planning, you know, the size that your work that you're going to be making. And what I did is I decided maybe 5 or 6 different sizes that I was creating collages in, and I just ordered those bags that were that size. And these are 8 inches by 8 inches, so but they fit really nicely. This is a little larger one here, but what you can see is these are pretty snug. So and it will protect. And these are archival also. And let me get this one started here. You can see that there's a little bit of allowable size on the top, and this is self-adhesive, so I pull that backing off, and then I can just fold this over like this. And what that does, it's fairly clear, so, and it protects your collage. And each time I make one, I'll just go ahead and put it in my mat, since I've cut, you know, so many, 30 or whatever. But I put a link on the Haiku site for a place where you could get these bags at. Now, what I'll also do is go over some of the materials that you'll need to frame with. You'll need a really heavy-duty cutter, box cutter, and then of course your artist tape. Now, a lot of times if I'm cutting a mat, and the corners are the hardest to get sometimes, and if it may be just feathered up, I can take a fingernail file, and that helps me to smooth out any rough edges that I may have had, that may have occurred on cutting this in the corner. And also, what I find works really well, if the corners aren't really that great, or they don't meet, and you can see this one's a pretty good cut here. But what I do is use a bone folder, and then I just press that on the corner, and what it does is it'll flatten everything out really smooth. So, but yeah, bone folder is really handy to have. And of course, you're going to need, you know, rulers, yardsticks. T-squares. There's, you know, you can buy a lot of different things to help you frame. But one of the most important things to get, and I put a link to a company that makes these mat cutters. This is a Logan mat cutter. I think I gave maybe, I think it was around $80. I got it on sale. And this came with the mat cutter and the mat cutter itself. And this will cut a 45-degree bevel. So, and then the blades are interchangeable, and you may want to stock up on a lot of blades. But let me show you how to, I can find a blank mat. If not, I'll just use one that's already cut. Okay, let's just use one that's already cut. I don't think I have a blank. Well, let's just use this rectangular one here. Now, what I do is I find out what I want my border to be, and I measure that. And what you can do with your mat, you can actually, this moves so you can get a different size width of your mat. I'm just going to just say this is the size that I want. Now what I can do is I can run this mark down all the way around it, and everything's going to be spaced evenly on all sides, as you can see. And then you would actually cut this with the mat cutter. And this is on a groove, so you can actually, it slides. And then you just continue to cut. This has a little line here that tells me where to stop at. So if I'm moving this across, I would match this line up with the line that I drew with the pencil. So, but yeah, if you plan on doing a lot of work, collage work, and you want to mat your work, this is a really good investment for that. So, but yeah, that's pretty much the basics of mat cutting. So, as always, if anyone should have any questions, feel free to send me an email, and I'll try to answer them.